Hey everybody, Dr. Green here. Today we're going to talk about ending an iteration. So some key concepts I'd like you to keep in mind as we go through this. Dot the I's and cross the T's. The system needs testing too. And look in the mirror. So dot the I's and cross the T's. Just because you've written all your code doesn't mean you're finished building your software. There's a lot of stuff to do at the end of an iteration to make sure that everything is in place. You should evaluate your process. Did the process work well? Do our burn down charts look good? What problems were caused? Do we like our process? Were we communicating well? You really need to look back and see if all the communication and everything you did worked. Next, you also have to plan for the next iteration. Are there user stories that got bumped to the next iteration? Bug fixes that will now be integrated into the next iteration? Has our velocity changed because we've been working so much better? If you remember, you should always use an average velocity for your calculations from the past 3 or 4 iterations at least. That will change your planning for the next iteration because your velocity will change a bit. You should also go back and complete documentation. Is it spell checked, grammatically correct? Is all the comments in your code complete and grammatically correct as well? Does your documentation look professional? Is it clear and concise and easy to use? This is really important for both the users of your system, for future developers, and also for future you. This is also the point we'd normally do code reviews. This doesn't always happen, but in larger teams, you will usually be paired off with a senior developer who will review the code that you have written. They'll tell you if things need to be made better, if things need to change, or give you ideas on how to improve your style and technique and process and give you other insights. While they do that, it will help you refactor your code, which you should be doing anyways. The code we write the first time through is never the best. It can always be refactored or changed to be better. We can pull out functions and modules, redefine classes, integrate design patterns. There's lots of stuff we can do. And finally, this is a good time to update your tech. Is your workstation and development environment set at the appropriate versions and patched and all those kind of things? And also, you should spend some time catching up on new tech. When I worked in industry, I made it a point to take 1 hour every day to read blogs, to listen to podcasts, to play with new technology. My employer was happy to let me do this. Why? Because it benefited me. I became a better professional. And by becoming a better professional, I improved the team and the company. If the people you're working for do not support this, you should really start looking for a new position. In computer science, tech changes fast, and you should always be keeping up to date and looking into the newest, the latest, and the greatest, and keeping your skills up to date. So that's dot the I's and cross the T's. In addition, the system needs to be tested too. Just because developers have tested their code doesn't mean it's actually well tested. You need users to test your code. Many places will also have a test team to test your code. You'll see we have an example pattern on the left, the development team and the testing team, where the development team completes an iteration, then passes it to the testing team while they move on to the next iteration. The testing team then passes back any bugs or fixes they find, which are integrated into yet the next iteration, and the cycle continues. Doing this is awesome. It's great if you have a full test team. Many people do not have a full test team. If you are doing this, you need to have excellent communication, whether it's via Slack or email or text message or person to person. You have to communicate clearly and concisely and well, or this won't work. Now, if you don't have a full test team, you may have some other ways to do this. An example is the one at the top right. You work through many iterations and then you integrate a test iteration. Maybe you do this every 3 iterations, every 2 iterations, every 5 iterations, but you have an iteration completely dedicated to testing to find any bugs. Right? This is typically used by smaller teams that don't have access to full test teams. If you have lots of time and lots of money, you may in fact alternate development and testing iterations like we see at the bottom right. So there's lots of styles to accomplish this. There's not one correct answer. The right one is the one that works best for you and your team or teams. During this process, you will find lots of bugs as well. So remember, the old joke is that a feature is just a bug dressed in a tuxedo. Make sure you get your bug fixes logged as user stories and integrated back into the system so that they are repaired. Finally, make sure you look in the mirror. You want to look at the Agile retrospective. All right. Typically, we ask 4 questions. What was good or went well? What was bad or didn't go well? What can we do better? Or the classic version, what have you learned? And what do I need help with? Or what still puzzles me? These questions help us go back and look over our process, our team, our software, our documentation, over everything, and get a really good idea of how to continually improve. You'll see there's more questions you can ask. There's a great link there you can check out. When you look at that, you'll see you can dive pretty deep. The key here is that to do a good Agile retrospective, you probably need a couple hours of face-to-face time, and you need a team that you can trust. If your members of your team do not have trust, the Agile retrospective won't work. Why? Because the answers to these questions will simply be lies made up to protect your job or your position. But if there's trust there, you can actually talk honestly and openly about the process and the good things and the bad things and what needs to be changed and all these kinds of things. So you need a good team that actually has openness and trust among it. All right, so there are your concepts. Enjoy those while reading the chapter, and I hope that your iteration ends just as well.